Okay.
Hi, my name is Sarita Baines, and I'd like to introduce you to my presentation on poverty and health. First, we'll start with history. In 1834, the new Poor Law was introduced. In 1837, William Tharp appointed Chief Statistician. In 1848, the Public Health Act. In 1848, cholera outbreak killing around 70,000 people. 1854, Sir John Snow identified that cholera was not miasma and was actually caused by contamination of water. In 1870, the central government acknowledged there was a crisis, making it compulsory for local authorities to set up schools. In 1875, the Public Health Act. All local governments were to appoint officers to provide clean water, dispose of sewage, also to ensure that safe food was sold. In 1887, Seaborn Rowntree conducted a study on York. Rowntree investigated working class families. He conducted qualitative and quantitative research that classified poverty into two classes: primary poverty, known as absolute poverty, and secondary poverty, also known as relative poverty. In 1897, John Snow published the English Sanitary Conditions. Absolute poverty. The condition is where a person does not have the minimum income to meet the minimal requirements for one or more basic living needs. A person's basic living needs include health, food, safe water, clothing, shelter, sanitation, services, and information. Absolute poverty is extreme poverty. Absolute poverty was identified in 1990 by the United Nations as the grievous deprivation of the basic human needs. Absolute poverty is not only measured by income, but also the access to services a person can access. According to the World Bank, over 700 million people globally are living in absolute poverty. The United Nations and the World Bank have defined if one person is living on £1.90 or less a day, they are living on the absolute poverty line. Relative poverty. The condition is where one lacks the minimum income required in maintaining the average standard of living in the current society. Relative poverty is generally how individual countries' poverty rating is measured. Relative poverty has the ability to adapt over time as the society's wealth expands, the amount of income and resources deemed imperative for correct living conditions. Links between poverty and health. There is a clear correlation between poverty and health, which also links to poverty and discrimination. Poverty presents its own challenges, which unfortunately directly affects the health of those who live in poverty. It is clear that there is a pattern between social class and ill health, be it physical, mental, or emotional. There are a number of reports to back the point that health is determined by not only biological factors, but by social and cultural factors, have a profound effect on one's health outcomes. The macro and micro. The macro is a hierarchy system that filters down to society. The macro structure generates a methodology on how society functions and its expectations. It focuses on large scales perspective. It therefore creates macro level change in society. This includes the economy, politics, education, culture, and family. The macro level consists of large organisations and institutions that possess a legal power over the hierarchical coordination inspired by economics. The macro level analyses, collates data and measures patterns to gain a better understanding of the cultural trends and the influential movement that aid the decision of the macro structure of society. The macro level is derived from the functionalist and conflict theory. The conflict theory, which plays a role in the macro structure, has within history constructed the divide between the rich and the poor. Political authorities and dominant cultural expectation, social stratification group people in socio-economics and are categorised in upper, middle and low class. Functionalism adjusts to keep society stable and functioning. Everyone is expected to have a contribution to the whole of society. The NHS is largely funded through taxes. The NHS England control the resources and allocation of services and allocates different departments to monitor and provide different health services in the UK, including primary, secondary and private services. Micro. The micro is the agency, the individual, the choice of free will. It also looks at the interactions with small groups and social units that exist in society. Micro focuses on the symbolic interactions that are present in an individual's life. This enables research to analysis of the impact of its services, as well as identify individual interaction with others of social order and changes that are needed in society to sustain a macro structure. The symbolic interactionism theory looks at their social behaviour and attitude. This is beneficial in understanding the social situations, e.g. GP and patient relationship. It creates an understanding of individuals' behaviour changes accordingly to events, objects and people. It assigns meaning to things and how they should act accordingly. Some view the interactionism of some normal behaviours and illness and become reliant on institutions within the community. Micro level can also identify the epidemiology of its disparities with race, gender and culture, and geographical disadvantages, which recognises that there is a correlation between the disparities of social advantages and disadvantages that would affect one's health chances. The macro and microstructure has a high influence on the individual than the individual has on the structure. The macro and microstructure shape each other, reinforcing cycle of influence. Political perspectives. The Black Report touched upon the health status among the social classes, looking at other industrial countries to identify possible causal relationships, to examine the hypothesis that has been formulated and what they tested as to look deeper into the implications of the policy. The report suggests further research be initiated. Thatcher's Secretary Jenkins used the report to say that NHS was a huge expense and claimed that the NHS was not making any difference to inequality. Jenkins saw the socialist threat in the report. Jenkins said, "We have been spending money in an ever-increasing amount on the NHS for 30 years and it has not actually had much effect on increasing people's health." The Spirit Level, published by Kate Pickett and Richard Wilkinson. The book highlights that inequality has an effect on societies. The book shows that for all of the 11 different social issues, outcomes are notably worse in countries that are more unequal. The author argues that the evidence is powerful and only a vertical redistribution of wealth could aid the situation and make the societies healthier. Among all these points, the Conservative government recognised that people who come from poverty were generally subject to illness and more negative social issues like obesity, mental health and imprisonment. However, did not agree with the fact that the wealthier people in the countries should aid the poor person financially to combat ill health. The Conservatives thought that the Black Report especially was supporting socialist views. Conservatives believed that the NHS was enough to aid ill health to those who could not afford private healthcare. They also believed that too much money was being used on the NHS. The political group Labour believed health and social issues should be aided through taxes, however believed that the richer pay higher taxes and poor lower, as they acknowledged the link between ill health and poverty. It is evident all politicians convey political discourse arguments regarding ill health and services to aid the ill, however disagree on what services should be provided and how should be funded. They all believe that ill health is related to social class poverty, but have alternative views on how to combat this issue. 3 factors. There are many factors that may affect the influences on the social distribution of health of an individual. However, these are not just an isolated income, and many factors will interlink the needs affecting health. We are moved on in the current time with more health services and support services available for everyone. However, this does not eradicate some of the detrimental factors that influence an individual's health chances and the inequality that still exists. Gender. Gender plays a relevant role in health for all men and women. Taken into consideration, biological and behaviour vary according to traditions, culture, race, social structure and educational economic factors that impact on how individuals access health services. Women tend to live longer than men in industrialised countries. Women are more likely to experience ill health in comparison to men. Women are more likely to suffer from muscular aches and pains, tiredness, depression and anxiety. This is a factor of genetics. The mortality rates in women are continually the cause of cervix, breast and uterus cancers, which most of the time occur from biological influences. The genetic and socio-economic factors correlate to influence the conclusion that men are less likely to seek medical attention from their GP. Masculinity generates a role in men's health through the stigmas that are attached to ill health. Illnesses that affect men are depression, suicide, diabetes, prostate cancer, heart disease and lung disease, which create a higher mortality rate caused by not seeking medical advice. Gender identified gaps has a significant differences in sourcing and identifying health information from a gender perspective. These differences enable individuals to draw attention to the risk factors, treatment and disease. Class. The class factor is a social divide in society. Depending on your status and wealth, there is a better opportunity to access the quality of care needed to maintain a healthy life. The class status will also come with a high level of education that will produce a better chance of financial income. Unlike the NHS primary and secondary care, there are long waiting lists to access services. With private health care, there are possibilities to attend appointments when needed, thus not affecting loss of earnings, unlike those that are less fortunate. Wealth has the advantage to tackle illnesses effectively and efficiently. It also includes the importance of understanding healthy benefits. Education. The education system functions in society with an understanding that education will layer the individual with the information that impacts choice and provides awareness. Education within deprived areas and where population is low in socio-economic areas, individuals may not have the ability to understand and seek the services that they need. Young people are more likely to smoke and participate in drug use. These factors are contributions to the lack of knowledge provided in deprived areas. The health within the education system and the community provides inadequate and lack of information and awareness within society. The barriers in the healthcare system results suggest very strong gradients where the better educated have healthier behaviours in every aspect, and some may reflect differential access to care. Thank you.